Right, so we've got Andersons Barbershop, which I believe is probably the most fun case of the bunch. I personally find it the most interesting. Don't know why exactly. Maybe because barbers are like a thing in Germany, and it's quite interesting for that reason. So I was really excited when the students last year when they picked this as a case to do. What I've realized since is that Andersons actually moved. Okay, so for some of you who may have used the shop in the past year, they moved a few months ago, I believe. May have been as long as a half year or something. So they moved out of town 2 hours back towards where Anderson is originally from. So it doesn't really change much for our purposes for the discussion, because the questions are kind of broadly worded anyway. So yeah, the plan today, as usual, is we're in the even week. So we're doing the case discussion today. You've got the questions, I've shared them with you. Since the groups are a bit smaller, since not everybody is here, we'll probably, I'm actually going to end up rearranging the groups slightly and automizing that, so that you guys are not just left with 1 or 2 people in the groups, or in some of them 4 or 5, but that it's kind of a bit more evenly split. And then at the end of the class, as usual, we'll do the quiz. Any questions? No? Cool. In that case, let's get going. With a kind of soft intro question, where do you guys get your haircuts? And by the way, since we are so few people, I really don't think we need the hand up motion. You can probably just unmute yourself. There'll be times where 2 people speak. That's okay, but just kind of go back, and have the second person speak later. So anyway, where do you get your haircuts?
I used to go to Andersons. Like, that was my spot. So now I just wait to go home. And there's a place I go to at home, but I don't get my haircut here anymore.
I was really sad. Yeah, when I found out that they'd moved, I was like, oh, I mean, I didn't go there myself, but obviously from a case perspective, I was like, no, why would you? Anybody else? Haircuts?
I just go to Sports Clips. I don't know where else to go.
How much is that there?
It depends, but it's usually around the range of like $20.
$20, okay, right.
Like, that's like with a tip too, so it's not like terrible.
Right, I got you. Anybody else?
I usually go to salon, but when I'm at school, I go for the cheapest option, which definitely isn't always the best, but it's what I can afford when I'm here.
Mm-hmm. Which place, if I may ask, do you have a preferred place in town that if you have to go here that you go to?
No, I don't really have. I think I've only gotten my hair cut once here in the last 3 years. I usually just do it at home, but I can't even remember where I went freshman year, but it was cheap.
Sure.
I used to go to a barbershop, but ever since I started growing out my hair, I found this guy at a salon. I've been going to him for like 3 or 4 years now. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So moved from a barbershop to somebody more specialized in longer hair makes sense. Yeah. Anybody else?
I go to Shorty's.
Okay. How much is that?
I think it's like 18, and then with tip, like 20, 24, 23.
Right. So similar to what Brandon was saying there earlier. Yeah. Anybody else sharing? I myself, I kept, when I first moved away at 19, I kept not having a haircut at all. I grew it out as well because I wanted to get my haircut with my barber in Germany, which just, it looked horrible. It looked so bad, my hair so thin. So I eventually gave up, but I find it quite difficult. Like I would be with a barber and then, move from one city to the other and still drive back because I just, it's such a trusting relationship you build. So eventually I gave up. My wife for the last, 10 or so years, she's been cutting my hair. I was just like, nah, can't do this every time I move. Anyway, okay. Right, so Noah Anderson, what risks did he take when starting his business?
There were already some established barbershops in town, so coming into a competitive field already.
Okay, so you have a fair amount of competitors. What other risks did he take?
I know that.
Jude?
I would say the risk that like people wouldn't place as much value as he would hope on like the old-fashioned experience that he's going for.
Okay, so trying to be the sort of first in that area to really push that old-fashioned experience while not knowing whether there's actually a market for it, sure, yeah. What else?
I was gonna say it was already kind of on a decline for barbers. I think what they said 23% in the past maybe 10 years.
Okay, so it's not just going into any competitive, local market, but it is a market that is perhaps on a downward slope, which, as you know, markets kind of go through phases usually, and it's much easier to enter a market that's in the growth stage than to go into a market that's, in maturity or decline, because, there's more competition than necessarily, right? Yeah. Justin, you've been trying to unmute yourself a few times as well.
Yeah, I know they mentioned like how young he was, and how that's a risk in terms of like a barbershop, because usually they're older, more experienced than he is.
Yeah, very common for barbers first to go through some sort of, years long of apprenticeship, and then, work in an established shop to build up your clientele, and then to kind of just move with that clientele over. So that's a risk for sure. Nick, you were trying to unmute yourself.
To go along with what Jude said, like, I feel like the people he's targeting might not like be here, because we're more of a young, like around here, it's more of a younger demographic, and we're not really nostalgic about old barbershops. Like, I don't know, there's not really a big target market for that here, I feel like.
Right. Seeing that people like yourselves, students, right, perhaps haven't grown up with that sort of idea. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Anything else in terms of risks, Arman?
I don't know if they said already, but he had a tough time looking for a place to open up for rent.
Yeah. I don't know how many of you have been here for more than, a few years for the duration of your studies, but, Uptown Normal, and I wasn't here either, obviously, we've just moved here last year. But Uptown Normal looked very different. That it wasn't like a cute little town where you had all these little shops. They've done a lot of development to get it to that stage. But because of that, then of course there was more competition for these, nice spaces that are in that walkable area from campus. So it's not necessarily easy, or it wasn't until the pandemic hit. Okay, I've told you last week 2 weeks ago, that it will usually be a question. What are the target customers? So given his, not infinite budget for marketing, who are the people that he would really want to spend his marketing money on to get into his shop? Who are the people that he wants to come in above anybody else, knowing that he would take anybody, obviously?
For the target customers, I would say something around like people in the local area, because usually when you're a barbershop, you tend to chat with everyone along the way, and usually all the customers are ones that come back frequently. So
Okay.
that would be the local customers around the neighborhoods and all that.
Local would be one criteria, sure. Any other criteria, anybody?
I would say like people that value like the old school barbershop kind of feel.
Okay. So people who like that experience, the
for.
barbershop experience, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing to add to it. Yeah. Anything else?
I would say males.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
males,
there's two
because
people.
he talks about like close shaves
Mhm.
and just like how he differentiates himself by having like the hot close shaves and stuff like that. Like reading through it, I felt like a lot of it was towards like males.
Yeah, absolutely. It's towards males. Barbershops in general usually go for males, so gender would be male. By the way, this one question we're actually going to pick up next week when we use the model. So if you remember those points, it'll be faster for you to just go bam, 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 So we've got the locale, we've got the gender, we've got the sort of, the interest. Anything else to narrow down? Maybe age? What age bracket do you guys think?
I said it would be like, well, he's in a college town, so I feel like he would try and branch out to college kids, but also like middle-aged males.
Middle-aged males?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any opposing or supporting opinions? I would say it's probably true. Middle-aged males is probably his most common kind of like demographic that you would go for. Yeah. Okay, good. Now, the next question is a breakout room question.